Welcome back everyone to the LEC and our match of the week between G2 Esports and Koi. And guys, I'm not really sure I know what to expect here because most of the games we had so far didn't play according to the expectations we had. So what do you guys anticipate here?
I mean, surely there is one favorite coming into today, right? And I think it's not biased, everyone. I feel like everyone can agree that this is a G2 favorite matchup. It should be. But then again, we watched yesterday's game, and back then logic didn't really apply. So let's see what the scrim week really has been doing for Koi.
And Koi really want to pick up a win here, even though a victory today would not lock them into season finals yet, but it would definitely put them in a prime position with 99% of the scenarios where they can make it. But how do we reflect on how Koi has been playing so far in summer?
Honestly, I think the year has kind of looked the same for them all the way through, regardless of changes and different playstyles they've tried to go for. It feels like they are lacking this little bit extra in the end that most of the teams that win championships have, that they themselves had last year when they won.
And one of my main criticisms of Koi throughout this split is definitely their objective control. You can even see it with Drake in general. They're going up, they're the last place team in terms of securing their Drakes in terms of percentages, and they're going up against the best team in terms of getting these objectives. And it's not necessarily that they don't have an early game lead to get this Drake, because they do. That's the thing about Koi. They get early game leads. They just screw up the macro a bit with what to do with these leads, and their setup specifically for the Drakes has been lacking. This is what I'm hoping that they have been using a lot of their resources on in the break to try and improve on.
And I feel like it's something that G2 can exploit, because I feel like they had a lot of fun going into the best of ones. Did we see everything from G2, or do we think, as usual, it's gonna be G2, they're gonna have some hidden strats coming in today?
Honestly, I feel like we saw nothing from G2 this summer. They tried really hard to be this macro team, and I think they succeeded in so much of it, but that sort of also left them with showing nothing. They won games by basically just killing minions. And today you could see a completely different G2, the G2 we're used to, maybe that's super explosive. So in my mind, G2 is really scary to go up against, because you've seen this macro, almost Korean G2 now in the Summer Split, but you don't know what G2 you will see today.
So we got the big picture here, but Guldborg, I want us to talk you through lane per lane matchup to know maybe what we can expect here from this game.
Absolutely. So we have been going, we could pick one matchup, right? We could tell you, oh my God, Larssen versus Caps. It's such an interesting matchup. But we wanted to go through every single matchup to get you ready for today's game. And the first matchup we're starting with is the top lane.
Yeah, so in the top lane, I think today we have Koi's best chance of winning, actually, in Szygenda. As you can see, he has really good stats for a 4 and 5 team. And in BrokenBlade's case, he is the one with actually the lowest stats of the entire team. So I feel like if there's an angle today for Koi, that's going to be Szygenda.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And the thing with BB is, though, there it shows less good in lane. He's also way more flexible with some of the champions he takes, whereas Szygenda, even if you think back to Group's last split, he was the one who was having the pop-up performances on Jace that really put in a 1v9 performance, and I think he's a guy that you're also looking at. But I was ending with the Larssen Caps, and we're also going there. We're moving on to the mid lane as well, because there's also a big matchup that needs to be played here. We've seen the names so many times go up against each other. It is, of course, Caps versus Larssen. What do we got here?
And probably the most exciting matchup of today's series, I think. I feel like whenever I see Caps versus Larssen, it's a matchup where no one sort of wants to fold. So Caps is a guy that always fights for his lane, and Larssen is someone that really tries to create pressure, create CS leads, and even roam, as you could see in the Malmö event last year. So I feel like this is a matchup that's probably going to be most key today, because no one of them wants to give up any sort of lane prio, so they're going to fight for it. Even Caps diving Larssen in the last series they played in Summer.
Yeah,
exactly, just like that. And I think now as well, you can see it just by the lane percentage. Second for Caps, first for Larssen. The lane percentage is how much of their time in the early game they spend in their lane. These are our highest lane percentage mid laner that we have in the entirety of the league, so you can obviously tell that they really want to get that league going. But we also have facilitators on both teams here. Last time the two junglers faced off, it was a very interesting battle, as we get in this replay, that members may remember. Now, I don't think it would be too illegal to say that Yike has definitely been performing better than Malrang, just through and through in terms of playing facilitators like the Maokai, playing carries like the Kha'Zix, even though this play is not going to go the way that it currently looks. It looks sick, it looks like he's getting a kill, not what's going to happen. If you're Malrang here, how do you really deal with the fact that you're playing against one of the best junglers in the league?
Honestly, I would try to avoid him at all costs. I feel like Yike is just that good. You don't want to go in a farming situation against him. You don't want to be in an invade situation against him. So you kind of just want to avoid him at all costs. And I think with what we have mentioned so far in Larssen Caps matchup and Szygenda BrokenBlade matchup, that's an angle for Malrang today to really put focus on getting Szygenda ahead or to punish Caps when he's trying to get his lead in the mid lane.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like we're moving up to top side here for Koi to find a win condition in terms of getting an X on G2, but I want to move down towards south, the last spot we have here on the map, and that is, of course, the bot lane, of course, that we want to take a look at here. Han Summer versus Comp. Once again, feels like there's a bot lane here that has a little bit of an edge over the other bot lane. What's really the game plan here as Koi's bot lane, especially if they want to play up towards top side?
To survive.
Yeah.
I think today for Koi, it's going to be a lot about just surviving, not taking bad trades, not putting themselves in a situation where they can get dove, because we've seen times before where G2 is willing to go for level 2 dives, level 3 dives. So as Koi bot lane today, you don't want to be low, you don't want to take bad trades, you really just want to stay in a good enough situation so that your team on the top side can get enough of a lead to help you through the early game.
All right, well, thank you very much, Rekkles, for actually coming up with this segment. It's a great one. And pretty much that's all you need to know about today's lane matchup. Now it's time to kick off the LG Ultra Gear Match of the Week, G2 Esports versus Koi.
G2 is obviously a good team, but I also think that we can beat them. They're not unbeatable if we get a good draft.
Going against Koi will be fun. We've played them many times. I feel like the last few times have definitely been in our favor, so we're there when Malrang tries to gank. We know what they're doing.
Yike has to be careful. Next combo of Malrang connects is going to be big. The flash in from Yike. Oh, no! See if they can make the dive happen. Multiple members now marked up. Advienne surely set to fall here. Conk first on the menu. Mikyx now traded. Advienne trying to survive, but Yike leaps in. G2 steamrolling Koi here in week 3, locking themselves in top 2.
We kind of had a rocky start, and from scrims, team's actually been playing way better. I feel like we can just show that.
Larssen looking to secure groups as a melee man, and he might do it. One and all from Larssen on the flank, knocked back. What a way to achieve 1,000 kills in the LEC from Larssen.
I mean, I think we feel very confident as a team in G2. I think towards the end of spring, we started getting very sloppy, so we managed to lose spring. But right now we are fully motivated.
I think maybe MSI woke them up a bit more, like, hey, we're good, but this is not enough.
We got so much inspiration from that. So now we're destroying in the EU teams.
The pillar is back! Knocked up, hand delivered! See Perks looking for Caps. Caps with the pushback, not quite under tower. Yes, he is under tower, getting locked up, but it's just focused on the kill. Doesn't even care, just keep going! Larssen over the wall again! Finding a massive angle, but this time leader disengages, but no, Comp leaps into the backline. He takes out Kabi, he takes out both carries on the side of Astralis. Here comes Koi, determined to secure their spot in groups as they push aside Astralis.
But now that we made it, we have a lot to show, I believe, that we're a really good team.
We have a lot to prove to ourselves. We are a very good team, but we haven't proven much yet, so we definitely just want to win.
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everybody else, moms and sisters included. My name is Quickshot, and I'm joined by Dagda, head of G2 Esports, taking on Koi. We're going to be dropping in hot to picks and bans. Do you think G2 have been cooking anything spicy for us?
I really want to see it. Like, I was already excited that we got the Ziggs in the bot lane. That was something that I was hoping we maybe see. But I'm keeping my eyes on the top side because I'm watching a bit of the solo queue for these guys, and they've been messing
Give me
around.
something spicy. What are you seeing in solo queue that you would love to see today?
So I've seen these guys playing a bit of Quinn to try and counter the Renekton. So I'm hoping that if the Renekton does come out, we actually get to see some of that Quinn take to the main stage.
Please, please, please. Call! G2 taking on Koi. Welcome to Picks and Bans, Game 1 in this best of 3. The winner of this series go on to face off against Team BDS tomorrow at the end of the day. G2 Esports are the high seed coming in. They picked blue side. And the most OP pick that we've seen thus far that has been first pick worthy in almost every game has been that Kai'Sa. Found itself banned the last couple games in the previous series. The Advienne, huge in priority as well. And straight out the gate, Poppy, Maokai already removed.
Yeah, and I think the Maokai is a big one here. We've seen it countless times for Yike. But also I think like Poppy has really started to rise up both in the jungle and also in that top side. So not completely surprised to see that. Still though, we've we're kind of looking to see are things like that Kalista going to be taken off the board? What is going to happen with things like the LeBlanc that we've seen super high presence as well, was 100% presence yesterday. So these are kind of the big picks that I'm keeping my eyes on to see exactly what does happen, especially towards that mid lane.
Of course, in terms of the priorities, there's that LeBlanc removed, as you mentioned. Kalista still open and available. Champion like Rumble is another one that I'm thinking about. Huge buffs on 13-12. It's kind of risen a huge amount here on the group stage best ofs. Koi taking their time for this final ban. You have to assume that if the likes of Kai'Sa or Rumble left open, they could be considered. Rell as well, good shout out. And of course, Hansama's Draven removed. So a number of those high priority picks that have found ban immediately locked in.
And there's the Rell. I mean, it's a great answer here because the thing is you get that flexibility both for the jungle and obviously in the support role as well. But I think it also kind of fits into what has been the game plan coming through for G2, which is, hey, we want hyperscaling in the bot lane traditionally for Hansama on things like the Aphelios and the Kog'Maws. We'll take the disruption in the jungle, which the Rell can fit into as well. So that's an Ashe though, and it's the first time we're actually going to see that coming through.
Okay, first time Ashe here for Koi as well. Changes I want you to talk about in a moment. Just before we do though, for Mikyx, a player that I can see over 520 professional games, he has 8 Rell games. Now I do think it is a champion that suits his style of play, just not one that we've seen be prevalent in the meta a huge amount. That Ashe, we were actually talking about it during that first series. Do you think there's any flexibility in that one? Are we expecting in comp sands? What shenanigans are?
I think it'll just be going to comp. This is something that we've seen a lot over in the LPL, especially on 13-12. Incredibly strong, good push, great damage as well with the fact that you can go in towards things like the Kraken Slayer early. And the buff that she got towards like her W on the volley, the mana buff is a little bit nice as well for the laning phase. So she's actually in a really, really good spot here. And I'm surprised that we haven't seen more of her, but you will have to watch out for things like the Rell that can just dive in on top of her here.
Yeah, exactly. One of those low word mobility AD carries. So one of the times that if anybody's able to jump on them, find that opportunity, gets blown up instantly. Yike was hovering that Bel'Veth for a moment or two. We know that he's shown a penchant for those carries, has pivoted a little bit in recent weeks. So I'm intrigued to see what he wants to run into that Sejuani while BrokenBlade was securing the Jax.
Yeah, I think this is where it's like, okay, we want to secure that top side. You probably want to go towards AD carry, and you're like, well, we already talked about the Kai'Sa. Can't really do Kai'Sa into Ashe. Ashe has a ton of range there, and it's really, really good at getting control over that mid lane, so or over that bot lane. So instead, we're going to see Caps go back over towards the Neeko, just be like, cool, this is something that he's been very comfortable on throughout the split so far, so let's just get him back onto us.
I mean, listen, I think back to the loss during week 1, week 2, pretend to be a control ward, ends up biting him in the butt. Did play 2 games, won one of them, lost one of them. Not what we're anticipating though in terms of the priorities on the picks with the Draven removed. Do Koi fancy themselves? What's the answer going to be in that mid lane? Larssen on Tristana, not a big surprise. It's something that he's shown great capabilities on throughout his entire career, and especially recently.
Yeah, and I think it just suits it down to the ground. I mean, we have Laure talking about it coming over from the LCK. The double AD carry strategy has been massive in that region, and I think we're going to start to see hints of it here in the LEC as well. So I think if you're looking at G2 Esports, it's right, well, I want to try and ban away some of these top tanks that can cause issues. So Cassante, things like Ornn, some that can try and play that front line. Even though Szygenda, we can traditionally kind of think of him towards those carries, I still think this is a composition where Koi are going to try and play off that strong mid jungle that they have and set up for Larssen to be that carry.
I mean, do you think that Kai'Sa is actually I don't want to say worth, because that's not the right word. You know, anticipating the fact that Kai'Sa into Ashe is not something that we would have expected in that bottom lane. It is obviously hugely powerful, hugely influential pick, so Koi decided to do that. One of the options, that top lane, that Szygenda could have played into the Jax is now removed and Rekkles, and I would anticipate another ban targeted towards him. For Koi, do they remove another jungler or bot lane? It's going to be a jungler. No Viego for Yike.
Yeah, I thought they'd actually go towards something like the Xayah ban here, just to get a little bit of that safety away in the bot side. Especially if you're going to try and pay for a pick, which you can do very well with Sejuani and Ashe, but not going to be the case. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Hansama go towards something like the Xayah. You've already got a lot of engage and go forward tools for G2, so making sure then that you've already got yourself peeled for Hansama just makes a ton of sense.
And I mean, it would be the first time that we see him on the Xayah this summer. And of course, with the fact that Rumble, by the way, unpicked, unbanned thus far, it's going to be Kennen in the top lane into that Jax. I'm seeing the peel, the kind of AoE crowd control from the Sejuani and the Kennen. Hopefully those are going to be layered enough to buy time for both Ashe and Tristana to pick up. But what I like, this versus you can do picks, you can do skirmishes, you can do big team fights. I kind of like what Koi's cooking right now.
Yeah, it's very, very straightforward, and I think that's where Koi have found a lot of their success is, hey, we can play through a strong mid jungle, which you definitely have with this. I mean, Larssen's looked great when he gets his hands on the Tristana, and then you can lean that in towards team fights, where you've got this early buffer that then you can lean into, and I think that's where Koi have looked strongest, especially when Szygenda can try and play for these sort of flanks. But you are up against G2, who love to play for sides, love to play at the map well. And when I look towards things like the Jax, who in a 1v1 as the game goes on will start to outpace Szygenda, it does mean that Koi have to put pressure onto G2 early to actually get some plays. And I mean, Kalista now into the bot lane, that's going to be a 2v2 that is going to make things a little bit more difficult for Koi.
Kalista Rell in the bottom lane, or Kalista Nautilus in the bottom lane. Both Nautilus and Rell can both support and jungle, so I don't 100% know where those are going. I think if that Nautilus ends up going jungle, it should be the first one of at least Summer. I'm asking stats to validate that for me. But as we see this last pick coming in, tell me what you think in terms of how they're going to land, but also which one you prefer, because we've got those flex options.
I do think I prefer the Kalista with the Nautilus. Just the amount of uptime that you have on these engages is absolutely spectacular. And also just that point-and-click CC makes it very easy then for you to go on towards the Ashe. The only thing, though, is because you have this Alistar here, he can try and play a lot of disruption for Kalista, trying to make sure that she's not able to follow up on some of these engages. So I'll be curious to see how they try and set up, but I think a lot of it is going to be a case of Yike trying to get into this bot lane, making sure that he can try and play around this Kalista. But he also has to try and help out in mid as well. Neeko not going to have the best of times against Tristana, and we've already seen it today, we saw it yesterday. When Tristana has that opportunity, she's so good at leaving lane and having impacts on sides that you're going to need to try and shut down Larssen.
Especially when you combine that with a Kennen or an Ashe, right? You've got the setup tools, you've got the CC, and that's before you even consider the fact Alistar's in that bottom lane. So a lot of pressure or excitement. In terms of early game and laning, do you feel that G2 can accelerate this one a little bit quicker, or where should we set our sights for the first few minutes?
I think for G2, it has to be looking at that bot side. You've got Kalista Nautilus. It's all in aggression. They want to try and win out that one. When you look towards Koi, it's Tristana in the mid lane. You need to play around this. You want Larssen to pop off.
And not only is it Tristana in the mid lane, it's Larssen's Tristana. It's Koi and their mid lane carry. Can Koi continue this weekend of surprises that we've seen in the LEC? We're going to find out as we hit Summoner's Rift for Game 1 of G2 versus Koi. G's and MBs, welcome to Summer's Rift. Thank you to everybody in Berlin for bringing the noise. We are straight out the gate with the level 1. When you have Rell and Nautilus combined,
it's so much
it is so brainless. I think Braum is the only other champion that you'd love to do. And look at this, immediately going in. Dagda, BrokenBlade, daring Koi to step into him with the counter-strike used. That's a lot of noise.
Yeah. But I'm so hyped for this series. Like, this is going to be so sick. I'm like, when we got to see Koi start to bring out and start to play a little bit more around Larssen, like Malrang trying to find that success there, I actually thought, okay, we're starting to get a bit of an identity for Koi, but they are up against the behemoths of G2. Like, G2 are far and away looking like the best team in the league right now. So if Koi can make them bleed today, it gives me such high hopes for this team coming in towards the rest of our bracket stage.
I mean, yeah, the odds are not in their favor, though. So just to paint a picture, all time between these organizations, 32-15. 5 series wins for G2, 3 series wins for Koi, and in this year alone, it is 8-5. Ultimately, though, G2 are already in the season finals because of the fact they won Winter. Koi is still looking to book that ticket to join Mad Lions, BDS, and G2, 3 of the 6 teams that are on the path towards Montpellier.
Yeah, and the thing was, when we look back to spring, a lot of it was, well, Koi actually drew that first blood. They were managed to beat out G2, but it was then G2 fighting back in the second round of that. So I think for Koi here, again, it's a bit of revenge, trying to see if they can actually bring it back, especially when they were the defending champions winning from last year.
Well, Larssen immediately going forward, early level 2, uses that rocket jump, drops caps to below 50 HP. And I want to take a moment to highlight just how good Larssen is on that Tristana. When we look at the games that he has played, there's a trade. 1 win, 1 loss, a small 20 KDA, but more importantly, a goal difference of 14 of 1,200. So that's played CS and kills. While we see another trade going down. The reason we're spending time talking about Larssen is this was one of our pivotal prep points coming into the show, coming into the series, as one of the ways that Koi could look to win against G2. Literally, as I'm going full story time, another little gank, yeah. Malrang will at least get that Arctic Assault onto BrokenBlade. Flash forward from Szygenda under the tower, and Koi strike first.
Beautifully done here. The more time you can buy for Szygenda in this matchup, the better it's going to be. And one of the reasons we like when Larssen's on Tristana, it kind of gives Malrang confidence. It lets him get up onto the map, says that he can actually get involved in these lanes, and immediately he's off to a good start.
Fantastic play. And also, into the Jax lane as well. Any advantage that you can give Kennen is going to be huge. He already has that minor, range ability in terms of the early laning phase that he can use to bully. And Yike on the reply. Look at the minimap. Malrang's nearby. Counter-strike stun. BrokenBlade will take a turret shot for the trade though. Yike's going to back away for now.
There was a hawk shot that came out from comp which spotted that Yike hadn't cleared out his topside jungle, so I think Szygenda was kind of aware that something might have been going down towards his topside, so especially when BrokenBlade took that bad trade, they're just going to back away, and Yike will be able to clear out his topside here. But I'm more curious to see what Malrang does, because he's going to have a bit more information than Yike here. He's just come off of reset. He knows that Yike won't have gone for any sort of reset himself, so might actually be looking to go straight back towards his topside and see if he can go for a repeat gank on BrokenBlade.
I mean, it's a flashless Jax as well, so easier targets. Malrang's still got that flash available, so we can find that flash assault. Trying to get around the wards, but if you look at the minimap, Scuttle is taken. Great work from the observers, highlighting that Malrang's just being spotted now. And I think BrokenBlade will have enough time to get away. Mikyx will be able to get the cleanse already out of comp. Advienne forced to flash away the crash down from Yike. Advienne 200, the headbutt away. And G2 on the board, first kill secured by Mikyx.
Did go to Mikyx though, so in the grand scheme of things, would like to give that to Hans Sama, but still, Yike once more looking for comp. You've got the wave push in, and comp's gonna have to give up this massive wave now in the bottom side of the map because of the pressure that Yike has.
Okay, talk to me about Yike on this Rell. And please remember, it's the first time I think we have seen the Rell in the jungle here in the LEC. How do you expect him to play it out? You mentioned him coming bottom lane during draft. Tick, already done.
Yeah, and a lot of this is going to be a case of, hey, we have the do not move forever style between both the Nautilus and Rell here. So as long as someone can set things up, you're in a great spot. So for G2, it's about making sure that you're able to find these big engages. The point-and-click CC from Mikyx, especially at level 6, just sets up so well for Yike. And when you end up being able to, say, get onto someone like Comp, and then you've got all this follow-up with Caps with Yike, the team fights become really difficult for this ADs to try and play out.
I mean, when you think about the initiation for G2, right? Fate's Call, Depth's Charge, Magnet Storm. I mean, this was the setup once again, just really nicely done here from G2.
Yeah, Comp immediately with the cleanse as that auto attack comes in so he can step away, but Yike just barely catching Advienne on the way back, manages to get the flip over the shoulders, so you end up with the cow in the middle of where he doesn't want to be and goes down as a result.
I think I like the fact, again, Mikyx starting this one off strong. Already on that road, has been, again, one of the huge impact players for G2, finding his form. 85% kill participation, 70% in the early game. So that's interesting as the game plays out, obviously a pivotal factor in terms of being involved with the rest of the team. But this is something he's become synonymous with, roaming around, impacting every area of the map.
And especially when you consider the champions that Mikyx has been playing, he's been much more of these peel supports, like we've seen the Broms and the Melios and that kind of stuff. The fact that he's able to get out of lane so consistently when Hans Sama is trying to scale on picks like the Kog'Maw, and get impacts in mid, get impacts at things like Rift Herald, are going to be crucial in this series as well, especially when you think Tristana, she wants to try and play for this first Rift Herald when it spawns. Same when you look towards the Kennen. I am keeping my eyes on Mikyx to see if he can link up with Yike and try and cause that disruption so Koi can't play for this first objective.
I mean, I'm going to be a little bit embellishing here, but like for Mikyx's champion pool, Braum, Nami, Melia, and Lulu, that's what he played in the regular season. None of them are engaged supports, right? Quote unquote, really.
Yeah.
By comparison, Advienne's got one game of Leona and the rest of them enchanters. Now, yes, the meta has changed, but I think for both of the respective players, a little bit more comfortable on these engaged tools. Both of them like to get into your face. And once again, Yike was showing his face down the bottom lane. Malrang was spotted by a G2 ward, so this will open up an early dragon. And this is a good start for G2, get that first objective on the board, and then look towards that Rift Herald.
So this is kind of what we've seen from Malrang, is that he keeps trying to go for these plays on the opposite sides of the map, but he hasn't been able to find that success, and it feels like this weird style that Malrang hasn't really paid dividends for Koi this split around. You can see there, yes, he's still behind on CS, but 10th when it comes to kills and assists, and 14th. 9th when it comes to team proximity, and the fact that he got spot on that ward on top side is now coming back to fight Koi again, because yeah, you're getting a Gromp, but you just lost Dragon on the bottom side.
And I think for any of our long-time viewers, especially last year, Malrang has always been a player that has been statistically unimpressive. At least when you look at his numbers, you need to dive deeper. But he was a very creative player. He did things that were weird, like it was surprising. And that was something that there was a storyline. Malrang was figured out. That's when Koi started losing and whatnot. He hasn't been able to find that same level of success. Right now, he's level 6 in the top lane. Yike, level 5 in the bottom, crashed down, interrupted by the Pulverize, and Yike is just going to get taken out. That was beautifully done by Advienne.
Great job from Advienne. The fact that he's able to get that interrupt means that you get to turn around the play on bot side, although Larssen would have liked something to be involved in there because he did teleport down, but Malrang as well actually did get into that top side, and yes, he didn't get the kill, but denying more of that CS away from BrokenBlade, making him uncomfortable, and you can see the results, right? A 20 CS lead opening up there, but might be a little bit late to the party as Caps has spotted him out here.
Ooh, Caps has got that ultimate available to him. He's going to throw in that clone. Ashe arrow comes out potential, but there was no backup. If you looked at the map, BrokenBlade was dealing with the wave. He's actually been caught by the enchant on Crystal Arrow. And I'll tell you what, I did not expect at 8.5 minutes to see Koi up 1,000 gold, 2 kills to 1, based on what we've seen during the regular season. So I think this is a good start to the game. Let's not discount the fact that now the ultimates are pretty much available for everybody. It's just Yike and Mikyx nearly a level 6. The engage options for G2 is going to accelerate this a lot, assuming they don't kind of int these dives.
Yeah, this was just a really good job from Advienne there. The fact he actually managed to get in and try and disrupt that was perfect. Caught him in a great spot. Larssen coming in on the TP meant that there wasn't really much follow-up that you could go for either. So this is... Oh, wait a sec.
Oh, that's a flash in. Pop Blossom is going to at least interrupt Malrang for now. Glacial Prison comes out. Caps dropping. 600 HP. Larssen flashes forward. Down to 300. I'm not quite certain that was the best call. Yike has got a storm of magnets and looking for the mid laner. Instead, Lance forward, crash down, up, tangle bombs, and well, and Malrang is just locked in place. That Poro didn't know what to do.
And everyone on G2 was collapsing. BrokenBlade from top side. You got Mikyx coming from the bot. The call went out, and the entirety of the G2 army was en route. But now Malrang getting caught out in that mid. Nice job from Caps to try and set that one up where he nearly got the solo kill onto Larssen. But now you're in a position where Larssen getting set behind. You're starting to look at the bot side falling further and further behind thanks to this aggressive bot lane. And it's the top lane that is the big difference maker here. Szygenda needs to have massive impact in these team fights if he wants to try and change this.
And very carefully, if you look 2 minutes till the next dragon, if you look at the combat gold at the top of your screen, that's the amount of money that has been spent, that has been converted into stats. Even though the gold is even, Koi have been able to spend that money to get those stats already now. Now that window will close. You can see BrokenBlade starting to back. He'll spend some of that money and he'll start balancing it out. But when we do come to this next dragon fight, potentially, we need to keep an eye on whether those itemizations have been balanced out, because it makes a significant difference this early game.
I think the big one is going to be your bot side right now. Like, Hansam and Mikyx will be able to reset, go back, and that's where you're going to be looking at the dragon. It's going to be coping up. They want to try and crash this in the next couple of seconds, but it's actually in a relatively good spot here. You can see that with the wave pushing against Comp and Advienne, they don't really feel comfortable to push up because the amount of pink wards that are on this bottom side here for G2 is actually kind of insane. Like, you can just see they've got like all angles kind of covered on this bottom side, so you never really know if Yike is in the vicinity, and he is at the moment.
Yeah.
So Koi have to be so careful with where this wave is positioned.
Once again, observers zooming out as soon as we start highlighting the vision. Dagda, I have to commend you once again, looking at the draft, anticipating how G2 are going to play around it. I think Yike, at this point, may as well pitch a tent to grab some s'mores in that bottom lane. He's had one successful gank, one that didn't go awry, and with a minute till dragon, the counter vision is now coming into play. Keep in mind, Malrang's also got that Herald, only a quarter of that time remaining, so it's potential money, so he does need to use that likely in the middle lane just before dragon comes up is what my guess is going to be.
Yeah, and the fact that he got to the ATM in mid lane as well helped, but beautiful stuff, blocking that from Caps. Fully intentional, I swear, but it ended up working out because now you got the reset coming through from Yike. He's going to be able to get back in towards the mid lane. Big ultimate down on Comp, so they're not able to set up for any sort of pick play. And now G2 are able to use that vision that we already aligned with to buff forward into River. And you've already got the push on bot side for Hansam as well. So even though you haven't really got the greatest of like reset timers coming through from G2, the sheer control that they have with Hansam on this bot lane is going to make it super easy for them to keep control over River and keep control over Dragon.
It doesn't look like we've got a shenanigans around Dragon right now. That Herald is about to time out. So remember, Malrang has not used it. However, BrokenBlade does have flash, does not have ultimate. Szygenda has got that slicing maelstrom. Do they fancy a tower dive? The dragon is being conceded for this opportunity. The Electro Hamster is in. The Battle Ball won't find the final hit. BrokenBlade is running for his life as Shelly gets a charge and the plates go to Malrang. Dragon is secured. BrokenBlade, ward hops over. Malrang chucks up the flail, but I don't think he wants this fight. An empowered strike to the face will be problematic. Larssen's coming in as well. Counter-strike stun will at least get the stopwatch. And now the teleport comes down from Caps. Is he the next target? Pop Blossom is available. Channels it. Looks for Sejuani. And Caps finds the kill. Szygenda tries to get the reply back. One more auto just about does it. It's Larssen that secures it. 1 kill apiece.
But the tower goes down on top side. It's about to be responded on the bot side as this wave is going to come in. So Hansama will be able to pick that up. But look at mid lane. Comp and Advienne had already abandoned that. So they're going to get plates in mid. So Koi, even though it looked very back and forth, they are the ones coming out on top in the trade. It just cost them a dragon when it comes to the gold that they've got.
2,200 gold up for Szygenda's Kennen. 40 CS already, and the tower taken down. That is gigantic. The only counterbalance is that Hansama is 1,100 up over comp, but I don't think Koi are gonna mind. Enchanted Crystal Arrow into Kennen engage is kind of how they want to play that mid-game anyway.
Yeah, this game all rests on Szygenda now. He has to be able to carry this, and it's a great setup. You've already just got the follow-up immediately coming through from Malrang. Just a bit sad that they don't get BrokenBlade off rip, but I think this was a bit greedy from Caps. Like, you can understand, hey, we've just traded for Dragon. They consider going from the cross map and diving onto the bottom lane instead, but as BrokenBlade is like leaving, you just forgo this tower. You've already made your decision. You play for just the fact that BrokenBlade managed to escape the play and you're happy out. But instead, Caps ends up giving his life across alongside it and the tower. Yeah, you get the kill back, but there was just no reason for it.
No at all. And that does end up meaning that Szygenda, he's playing his 7th most popular champion in Kennen. 20 professional games, 12 of them are wins. So has a fair amount of experience on the champion. I mean, he's 320 games. He's already going to be coming into position as the Enchanted Crystal Arrow tags up Hansama. Claims has been used. Teleport being channeled. Szygenda with the slicing maelstrom. Tags up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members of G2. Larssen rocket jumps forward, gets the kill onto Mikyx, and rocket jumps away. Caps is going to need that Pop Blossom just to save his own life. But here comes Comp. Yike is forced to crash down to safety. 15 minutes on the clock, the aggressive TP, and Koi take down G2.
It nearly didn't go their way, but the fact that Szygenda has so much damage right now was the changing factor for Koi. Not only do they manage to get that play onto the enemy team as well, they're going to get this Rift Herald. You've got the push out on top side. This is a massive swing for Koi.
Oh, what a great position to be in for Koi, looking at the #1 seed, the team that picked them for this best of. And look at your mini-map. The teleport starts to channel in just a second and Szygenda does work.
And this is where Hansama realizes he has to use the cleanse, so he's got nothing now as Szygenda comes in. And Yike tries to interrupt, but it just doesn't really work out, and Szygenda positioned perfectly where he's able to then back away as that ult ends. Larssen hops over the wall, he's in and out. Like, these choke points are perfect spots for Koi because of their ability to get in and out over the walls, whereas for G2, they're just not really in a position to set themselves up in that way, especially with how short range their composition is.
That one ward, what a gigantic impact that ward had. Had Szygenda not teleported in literally the middle of G2, the fight would have gone differently.
And that's where you have to be careful about how you fight whenever you play these sorts of games, because it has very much been a case of bottom side of the map belongs to G2, but the top side belongs to Koi. And it was just the fact that we hadn't fully swept out all the vision was what ended up coming back to bite them, because Koi's been in control of that top side. Malrang has essentially been the one clearing out Gromp on that top end the entire game, so you have to be so careful of this as G2 if you're trying to fight on the opposite end to where you're strong.
Now, for the G2 fans in the audience that have been somewhat silenced, it is 2 dragons under their belt, a minute to go. And when you do think, if G2 can start a dragon or get into that pit, their ability to turn and engage is phenomenal. Kalista ult, Neeko ult, Rell ult, before you even add on the likes of Nautilus as well, right? So if Koi are going to get sucked into those initiation places and they are not, immediately pulling the trigger, there are options, but G2's window is starting to shrink.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is that the fact that BrokenBlade is so far behind means he's just a non-factor on the side lane. So Szygenda can push out waves. Once he has his ultimate up, Jax doesn't really win out in the fight, especially with not even a mythic completed for BrokenBlade right now. So you get the opportunity for Larssen to be a threat on the side lane. You always have the opportunity now to do what is classic Koi fashion, push out mid, and immediately just try and jump onto one of these people in side lanes. And you can see G2, their control on the map is shrinking. Every time Larssen pushes a wave, every time Szygenda gets control over a wave, and even the push that Comp has over Hansama in mid just makes this game very easy now for Koi to clean out, as long as they can get this mid turret down.
Okay, mid turret down. That'll unlock deeper pressure into the jungle. Oh, the Marshal poise, not going to be able to get Hansama away. Glacial Prison comes down as well. Mikyx gets comboed by the cow and knocked into the air. Fate's call forward. Battle Boar in the air. That's a great dredge line. That's a comp. But the first kill's onto Mikyx. And despite a decent-looking counter-engage, it is Koi that find the kill and get out alive.
They didn't do it in time. Larssen managed to get the reset off the push he had on top side and get back out onto the map. So just using their tempo better means that Koi able to play around the cap, still catches Larssen.
Does indeed. Still got that pop blossom. Szygenda's got the flash. Szygenda's got the maelstrom. Summer forced to flash for his own life. The belt used by Caps. Starts to channel the R. Gets the knockup. Here comes the power pony. Summer needs to get those Ren stacks down. But Caps is looking to lock out Larssen. The kill secured by Summer. G2 are right back in it.
Szygenda went for the massive play and it whiffs entirely. Caps turns it around. Yike's interrupting Larssen. He's trying to jump away. And just like that, G2 are back into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody else, we got a game on our hands. And the fans are chanting. And I will say that Dagda, you again ran this perfectly. Koi really wants to unlock the map by getting that mid tower down. The bottom tower still stands as well. I mean, it's only one tower apiece, right? But I think that kind of tunnel vision and Szygenda feeling, he feels the confidence. He's got such a big lead. Unfortunately, his targets flash away from him. And then it draws Larssen in as well.
Yeah, and the big one here is the turnaround here from Caps. Now watch Larssen. Larssen tries to buffer his jump off the wall. Immediate crash down on towards Yike as well. So Larssen then has to flash away. But you've just got too many members of G2 in the vicinity. They're the ones that are actually crashing onto this mid wave first. And it gets them that third dragon as well. So now you're staring down the barrel of Soul in 5 minutes for G2. And it's not the fact that they can just go for a 5v5 and take it easily, as Caps is going to find Szygenda. It's the fact that you actually get to avoid Dragon now if you want to.
Yeah.
You can play elsewhere. Start to feed BB some money.
Give time to BrokenBlade, who right now is going to commit this flash. Counter-Strike and Grandmaster's used as well. Here comes Caps, but listen, may not even be needed. In fact, the kill will be secured. Yike running for his life. While Szygenda was the target of G2, the cross map makes Mikyx and the top inner turret the target of Koi. They maintain a 2,000 gold lead. But a 24-minute Infernal Soul with Kalista, Neeko, Rell, like, that is scary, and importantly for me, G2 can elect to ignore it, buy 5 minutes of time, or they can choose to pull Koi towards them and use those peel options. So either way, we're going to have an interesting decision in 3.5 minutes once that spawns.
Yeah, I think for G2, you want to try and actually play away from it. Use Caps and BrokenBlade to suddenly start to threaten some of the standing gold that's on the top side. But you can see that, at least on the side of Koi, they're aware of this.
Bait.
Larssen immediately TP'd into top side.
There's bait indeed, but who's baiting whom? Teleport being channeled. Target is Yike. He's used that ultimate just to buy some time. Repel will come out, but with him dropping, do Koi feel bold enough? Double ADs. They're inside the pit, Rob.
G2 want to fight.
And they're sticking around for this. Fate's Call is available. Grandmasters is up in a moment. Mikyx there as well with that depth charge. 4 versus 5. Caps' shapeshifter was stunned. Advienne's gonna take that blast cone over. Look at Szygenda from the back. Ultimate's available to him. Mikyx forced at least Koi to peel away from the pit. And the Fate's Call is pulled in, fired out. That is good from G2. They've interrupted Baron for now.
Yeah, but Szygenda's still looking. No flash available, has the ult. But, I mean, a Kennen with no flash, it's so difficult to just run someone down. So, G2, yes, they lose Yike, but they managed to stop Koi from getting the Baron.
That was huge. And not only that, they secure the mid turrets first. 2 towers to 2. 1,000 gold difference. I think the fact that Summer is kind of the power member of the team, Koi need to respect that. If anyone was comboed by the knockups from both Kalista ult and Nautilus ult, there may be enough time for those red stacks to come down.
And there was actually a lot invested by Koi to try and make that play. Like, yes, they got the pick onto Yike, but they lost a massive wave on bot side. Larssen TP'd onto the top side to try and get the tempo advantage they wanted to make the bait on Baron. So for Koi, that play not fully coming to fruition actually does sting them a little bit. They're still now in a good place. You can see they have push in mid, they have good control over top side, so they can get vision control back over this area. But with a minute 50 until Dragon, now Koi are starting to get into a difficult spot where we have to try and play both sides of the map. Whereas G2, they can just constantly dip into Fog of War on top end. And when that's when Caps, Yike, Mikyx, that combo can come alive.
And look at this. The fact that they can just tower dive, the tower falls. Mikyx was able to buffer that Q just to get out to safety. But Koi brute forced the tower. And now, as we crest the 22-minute mark, Dragon number 4 is coming up here for G2. Koi once again playing that sort of bait game, daring G2 to step into the darkness. We still need to see that level of control from Koi to at least convince me that they can win this game out. The last couple of skirmishes have gone the way of G2, but maybe they've bitten off a little more than they could chew. Flashing Cleanse is still available here for HunSummer. BrokenBlade's teleporting in from the flank. That will buy enough time for the kill to be secured. Rocket jump away. Larssen's caught by the Blossom. It's a fight on two fronts, and it's G2 in control. Larssen is being taunted by Caps as another pump falls down in the jungle. Larssen will be able to at least get that W out with 2 kills secured. They may be able to get Baron.
That ward in the mid lane is MVP. It gives all the information G2 know to set that play up. They know they have the teleport advantages, and every time we think Koi are getting a foothold, G2 pull the rug from underneath them.
This is a story of 2 wards. The 2 big swings have sort of come from wards in the middle lane. And the battling armies here in Berlin are getting a treat. With Baron secured, the gold now in favor of G2. It starts off once again with this ward being cleared up, and more importantly, HunSummer and Mikyx, they've got the backup and instantaneous TPs from the rest of G2.
But it gave the information.
Yes.
They knew that Koi were in this area, but they know they have the TP. They know that they can get Caps here, and they know Szygenda had already used his to try and get into the last place. So when G2 come through, they know they have the numbers advantages. Caps is cutting off retreats, and they can pick off members, but we're fighting for this Dragon Soul.
All right, it is a 2,000 gold advantage in combat gold for G2. Szygenda's got flash stopwatch, he's got the belt, he's got a flank angle. Where is the Kennen?
They don't know!
The slicing Maelstrom has already picked up a kill onto HunSummer, but the Magna Storm and the Pop Blossom turn it back around. It's damage all for Flavors, and all of a sudden, it's Comp running for his life. Somehow, G2 turn it around. The focus on HunSummer punishes Koi ultimately.
How? How in the name of God did G2 come out on top of that? How in the name of God is BB getting a double kill? What is going on, Trevor?
Dagda, when we get the replay, oh my word, that's fine. Can you help explain this to me? Because it looks to me like they just can't get through the front line.
Yeah, so for Szygenda, he comes over the wall, HunSummer tries to get away, but as Larssen jumps into the middle of things, Mikyx immediately knock up, and then there's the follow-up CC comes through, Caps gets all the damage down, and then it's the entire front line of Koi that's getting caught up in that wombo that we've been highlighting so far, so true. And for BrokenBlade then, he was trying to help out on the back line, so when Szygenda kind of runs out of gas, this is when Jax then starts to come alive, and he's already got all the CC that he needs in the 2 beefcakes beside him.
I mean, watching the members of Koi, their airline status just got upgraded a tier because they were flying for such a long time. It was like a 3-man Magnus on 3-man Pop Blossom. When you're flying in the air, you can't do anything, and I think that time allowed G2 to come back. They've got the Soul, they had the Baron, they've got the gold lead, and it's G2 now in control of the game.
Yeah, G2 are going to be able to get so much standing gold as well on this top side. This is kind of what we were talking about. Like, if they want to try and trade for map pressure, you've got 2 towers now. Essentially, they should be able to take with this Baron. They have good control over this top end. The only thing they have to be careful of is BB does need to get a little bit of pressure in the mid lane here before they fully commit for the tier 2, because you can see the pings going down on mid. They're like, we don't know where Koi are right now, so we don't want to fully commit to this top side yet.
And of course, look at the itemization. 3,000 gold advantage for HunSummer. He's got the Hurricane, Rage Blade, and Blade of the Ring King. That gold lead for Szygenda has stayed pretty stagnant for the majority of the game thus far. And I think once we see how G2 are responding to that early game advantages, Koi are now on the back foot. They still have great engaged tools. Sejuani, Kennen, Ashe. The only problem is it's fairly telegraphed. Look, the Ashe are in. G2 aware of it. Prison is held. Malrang doesn't fire, doesn't pull the trigger. And instead, it's now Koi on the retreat. Yike was thinking about going in. And G2 are fully aware of it. They've got the vision, they've got the angle, so it's going to be hard to surprise G2 at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly where G2 want to be again. They've got a ton of standing gold now, so you get the 2 towers on top side, a tower in mid, look for the reset. That's going to fool no one, Caps. You can cut that. Wait, is it? Yeah, he's just fine.
Yeah.
But I think the big one here is more so that you want to try and spend that money now, so you can try and look towards the last tower on bot end. You can actually put BrokenBlade in towards mid to threaten Nexus towers, and now you look like Divine Sunder, the Hullbreaker there as well for the Jax. Like, he's actually going to be really difficult for Szygenda to deal with in the 1v1, thanks to all that extra magic resist you get off that item.
And I think when you do look at Szygenda, the fact that he's gone Proto Belt, Hourglass, as well as the Shadow Flame, I mean, he is hoping for the bigger fights, right? Looking for those team fight scenarios. G2, as long as they don't give them, give Koi an opportunity to have those big AoE ultimates hitting them, I think they're in a very good position to close this game out. but it has been dramatic. I mean, look, 1:40 till Baron, 3 minutes to Elder, and Koya on the complete defensive. For me, it just comes down to finding that engage somehow on the steps of the inhibitor turrets.
Scuttle is just going on a little holiday. This is totally normal. No problems here at all. As Cap starts to take over this topside jungle. BrokenBlade though, we'll have to be careful here.
2 members looking to deal with him. Advienne's coming as well. BrokenBlade nearly gets the tower down. It's literally on a sliver of health. But the fact that both Larssen and Advienne, Larssen and Malrang, we sort of needed to push him away, it also opens up pressure in the middle lane. So G2 unrelenting right now, forcing Koi to respond.
Yeah, and I think G2 are going to play this relatively slow, although Koi are just giving them a massive advantage here in the mid lane, where nobody's really gone to cover. So you're actually in a spot now where you're caught in your own base here, and G2 are running back and forth.
I missed the Ashe arrow from a moment or two ago. Apologies if it was on screen, but both Larssen and Comp's ultimates were down. So in terms of like using that as a tool to save the tower, not available for them. You're getting followed up with the prison or the slicing maelstrom.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was they thought that G2 were sticking around in this topside jungle. They're like, look, we got Baron in 30 seconds. They're invested into, hey, we're just going to look for topside vision control instead, and they won't go for a tower. So let's over-index into bot and see if we can prevent BrokenBlade for getting anything, or maybe even kill BrokenBlade and get a 4 versus 5 at Baron. But G2 kind of said, no, we're fine. We're actually okay to just face check you realistically right now with how much CC we have and the fact that we've also got the Fate's Call. So instead, we're going to just look for that mid tower. So kind of calling the bluff of Koi in reverse here for G2.
And I mean, just look at the itemization differences, by the way. So GA completed for Hansama into Kraken's Triforce Zeal for Comp. It is day and night from the bottom lane. And the only real advantage is Szygenda top lane, but on that Kennen, he's not going to be able to get through Rell, Neeko, Nautilus. And what was a 2,500 gold lead is now 400 gold. So all of that power has shrunk. And our production team is just throwing up that combat stats. It is obviously 5k difference in effective combat value, excluding consumables. And with Rend, with all the autos, this should be an easy Baron here for G2. Crystal Arrow is just sidestepped and secured by the Smite. Came a little bit close. It wasn't a fair 50-50. Remember, Rend plus Smite gives G2 the advantage. They secure the objective. Larssen, Buster Shot used once again to get rid of BrokenBlade. But he cannot stop the tower being taken. With the Baron-empowered minions and playing multiple threats in multiple lanes, G2 are now running circles around the Koi fish.
Koi need to actually stop some of these backs though. They need to try and disrupt it, because you're looking at Elder Dragon in 30 seconds time, but they don't quite able to close the gap here. If they can stop some of the resets, it could actually work out really well for them, where G2 don't get to spend this money.
No, they don't. The biggest thing about these itemization differences, look at the levels as well. Caps and Larssen even, but 2-level advantage for Hansama in the bottom lane. 2 for Yike, 2 for BrokenBlade, before you factor in all the gold, as well as the Hourglasses, as well as the GAs. This is such an uphill battle for Koi, and that little decoy's going forward.
Szygenda got spotted on this ward though, so the whole play that Koi were trying to go for is kind of just come crashing down now. G2 are going to look to actually just engage in mid, because they know Szygenda's not in position.
I won't be able to reply. He's got the teleports. It does not look like it's happening just yet. Dredge line tags Malrang. Counter-Strike comes in once again. The root, the stun, the knock-up. Here comes Yike from the side, and it's already done. 2 members of Koi are down, a third to fall, and the 4th will be moments after. Larssen finally gets one back into Mikyx. But it's too little, it's too late, and Szygenda's running for his life. The flank opportunity was thwarted. Caps, Pop Blossom, not going to use the flash. I think he was actually stunned in place. Nevertheless, with the Baron-empowered minions with a 4 versus 1, they can look to push down the Nexus turrets.
Yeah, you have BrokenBlade is going to TP onto the minions as soon as they hit the base to make sure that they're able to close this one out. It was a slow burn for G2. Couple of topsy-turvy plays, but G2 will find themselves game 1 in their hands.
G2 Esports bouncing back from Koi's early game. The Nexus turret will fall, looking for a couple extra kills to pad the stats. As Hansama and the rest of the team take down the Nexus, 1-0 to G2. And I will say that of all the games we've seen this weekend, that was one of the more chaotic, especially early on. I think yesterday, the first series of the day, game 2, was pretty dramatic back and forth, but Koi came out swinging, And there were huge skirmishes around TPs that swung massive amounts of control in this game.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was getting to see Malrang play around Szygenda, getting this Kennen into a position, but then it becomes very difficult to try and leverage topside wins into big wins elsewhere.
Yeah.
And we can see they nearly managed to get it one team fight, but just unfortunately the fact that Hansama got such a big lead and we're starting to see Caps get into position and the wombo combo that was that 4-man unit of G2 just became too hot to handle.
I mean, the engage power of that Rell Nautilus was just overwhelming. Like, you kind of felt Kalista cleaning things up, but I think even before the Fates call was hugely impactful. Like, Nautilus and Rell are just so powerful. You can see why Rell is just such a big pick on this patch.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you're able to match it, as you say, with something that has that follow-up engage, but also then you're playing the map smarter as G2 as well. Because how many times we're like, oh, well, Szygenda's trying to get in position, but BB's actually just in a side lane farming. The fact he closed that gold lead and then managed to get 2 levels ahead is absolutely insane.
It is gigantic. That does it for us to the cast stage. We're back for game 2. Before that, though, Guldborg is standing by at the Telestrator.
And thank you very much, Trevor. Yes, I am standing by the Telestrator, where we're going to have a look at a fight towards the late game. Now, the way this fight starts, had this been an even game, had this been a time and place in a different alternate universe where Koi gets disengaged, they may be winning the game, but we're just going to be looking at it in the beginning and see what actually happens. It is at the moment where you can currently see that G2 have in fact stacked up their souls, and this means this is a fight that Koi will have to take. Their moment, which we have seen many times before, is the fact that there's one man who needs to find a good flank, and he's right over here. It is Szygenda. As you can see, there's a juicy target in the river coming in with a lot of people ready to go into a slicing maelstrom. So G2 right now actually does not have the best vision control. You can already see it. There's not a lot to go by. Control wards, control and control wards. The only place they know he's not coming from is right now where he's not trying to flank them all the way around because they already got that one covered. So they can kind of guess where he's coming from, and you can see it by the wards they're placing as well. As the cliff rolls out, of course the Drake is important, but all Koi needs to care about is just finding the engage immediately. And a huge engage like this was almost a G2 that was thrown out of the game, but notice Caps once again in the middle, immediately moving in with the Pop Blossom to find multiple targets, making it very easy for the rest of his team to clean up the fight. The Ashe are doing the best that it can in the back line to actually secure any of the kills that is available on the side of G2, but they're just not able to get anything. Now, what does this illustrate? I mean, it means that had Koi been on even footing, they probably would have been able to fight this. Now, why weren't they, despite having a decent early game? That's not for me to break down. That's for my beautiful analyst desk over here to break down. So, Laure, over to you.
Thank you so much, GV. I'm glad you asked these questions because there's a lot of interesting things to say about this game. But first, Chadam, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Congrats on reaching a season finals. How do you feel after the series? Quick
you know, we made like what every team wants to reach this year. So I'm just happy, especially after last year. I got reunited with the feeling of victory, so I'm just satisfied.
Fantastic. Yeah, the year is not over for you guys. And we can have a sneak peek of the opponents you're going to be facing off against tomorrow. I want to talk about the draft here first, because I feel like we had a lot of interesting things going on both sides, actually. But my first question is, what do you think of the Jax priority in Europe compared to the East? I'm talking about the LPL, the LCK, where it's one of the main champions we have on top lane, but not quite the case here in the LEC.
Yes, you could see lately that, especially in LPL, LCK, so Asian leagues, top laners really like Jax a lot, and it has been the case for like already so long. Yeah, Jax has always been the pick that Asian top laners pick, no matter what. You know, they're just like, Jax is just a strong laner, so of course I will just pick him. And they don't really care about what opponents they will play against. So they're like, Jax is just one of the best laner that I can find. I will just pick it, right?
Yeah.
How would you feel about this matchup, Jax versus Kennen? Who would you say has the favor in this one?
I mean, you know, I can see why Asian tops, you know, pick Jax because I think it's strong. But at the same time, you need to be able to make him work, I guess. And I don't think this is the case for EU tops, right? I think Jax can be a huge bait pick for the top laners in Europe. But especially in this case, in this draft, usually you want to couple Jax with the Sejuani. But here in this case, Koi picked it away in 2-3. So, 1-2, sorry. So you don't have that strong duo already mid top jungle. And you know that Szygenda plays Kennen. and you don't ban the Kennen 4-5. So you're just auto-countering yourself, which doesn't really make sense to me.
But to me, it screams confidence when you think of G2, because Rekkles, on the other side of the map, you have Hans picking Kalista into Ashe, and we know that it's not specifically a good matchup. So how do you explain the choices from G2 here?
I think the Braum ban is probably what allowed him to pick Kalista, honestly, because if you think about playing Kalista, you normally are very afraid of actually the Ashe matchup. I think it's probably the worst matchup you can get normally as the Kalista. But with the Braum out, Ashe doesn't really have a purpose anymore. When I was watching this game, I was thinking to myself that comp is actually playing pretty well. Even the clip that GB showed earlier, he was actually playing pretty well, but he's dealing 50 damage per auto. And he was 40 CS down, 50 CS down early game and ended the game minus 5k. So it just felt like the Ashe pick sort of lost its purpose the second Braum was out and they didn't go for the Milio, because those are the two combos that come to mind for me. So I feel like they kind of misused the Ashe and allowed Hans not only to pick a matchup that shouldn't be possible, but kind of run away with the game.
He really ran away with it, and the gold lead that he had after 20 minutes was actually immense and not expected in this kind of matchup. I want to talk about what happened top lane here, and Rekkles, if you can talk me through what Koi tried to do, putting the attention on top lane, and then we're going to swap to G2, putting the attention on bot.
So we kind of touched on it before the game, where Szygenda has actually been a really strong point for Koi, just as Larssen has been, and Malrang, I think, went into the game thinking that this is actually a winning condition for my team, so I'm going to make the most out of snowballing top lane, and they sort of succeeded in my mind. Jax was really behind this game, and if they got the dive later where Jax ran all the way around, jumped back, and Caps TP'd in and died, if that went a little bit better, maybe they actually get enough of a lead topside to do something with this game. But bot lane was an issue from the start, and it never really seemed like they could find their footing down there. And
Ashe could not even do a single ounce of damage at the end of the day at all. But usually it comes down to Koi's mid-game execution and maybe calls and how they approach this team fight. So what is your understanding of the team and the weaknesses they've been displaying today, and in general maybe?
I think Koi, they've always had trouble in playing mid games lately. We could see it from Spring already when we were facing them. We were clearly seeing they just lack of theory or something, or they just don't manage to connect as a team, which is the most important thing. They just don't manage to connect, or they're not sure what to do. But when you play against a team like G2, G2 is known for their mid game. They're really creative, but at the same time, Core is just not creative. You don't really know what they want to do in mid game, and they just got punished for their weakness.
What do you want to see, Rekkles, on the side of Koi going into the next game? They selected blue side this time around, so switching sides, switching priorities in terms of picks as well. What do you want to see here?
I definitely want to see a bot lane matchup where by default it's not going to be as tough as this one. I felt like they were getting zoned from pretty much the beginning of the game to the end of it. He was barely farming creeps at some point. And I think when you already know by going into this matchup that it's going to be tough in the bot lane, you need to find a matchup that's easier to play. And I think Kalista Nautilus versus Alistar is one of the hardest matchups actually to play. So I would just like to see something a little bit safer maybe on the side of Koi, with a bit more wave clear, so they don't have these situations where they're either freezing the wave on them or slow pushing and actually threatening to dive. I think the time Yike died was sort of a saving grace. That also could have been comp just dying and the game being over. So it feels like they're kind of in a position where it's a bit of a panic situation in the bot lane, and when you're actually doing so well in the top lane, as Szygenda was in this case, if you can buy your top lane a little bit more time, I think that would go a long way.
Well, we'll see if they can put everything in application in the second game. I hope you're going to get enough info from this series to prep tomorrow. Do you stand by your prediction? I think you predicted G2 to win on stage.
I think G2
Still confident about this one?
Still confident.
All right. Well, we'll see if G2 can close out this series when we return for game 2, or if Koi can come back. We'll see you after the break.
Right now, he's level 6 in the top lane. Yike, level 5 in the bottom. Crash down, interrupted by the pulverize, and Yike is just going to get taken out. That was beautifully done by Advienne.
I'm coming to you. I can hold him, I'm TPing. I'm going, Tristana. No, Kennen. I kill him, I kill Kennen. Nice, go Dagda, you don't die. Nice, that's good, huge.
Where is the Kennen?
They don't know!
The slicing Maelstrom has already picked up a kill onto Hans Summer, but the Magna Storm and the Pop Blossom turn it back around. It's damage all for FLICKR, and all of a sudden, it's Comp running for his life. Somehow, G2 turn